In this video, I'm going to read aloud Born a Crime, Excerpt by Trevor. The text that's assigned to you on Google Classroom. I'm going to start with context. Trevor Noah is a comedian from South Africa who grew up during apartheid. During apartheid, there were 4 categories of race: white, black, Asian, and colored people of mixed race. It was illegal for a black person and a white person to be a couple. Trevor Noah's mother was black, while his father was white. His mother and father had to hide their marriage from the world, which became harder when they had a child. In this excerpt, Noah recalls the challenges his family faced during apartheid and how they overcame those challenges. For your learning activity for today, you're going to be focusing on what people did to survive apartheid or how they overcame those challenges. So as we read, you might want to kind of take note of examples of how people overcame those challenges. Where most children are proof of their parents' love, I was proof of their criminality. The only time I could be with my father was indoors. If we left the house, he'd have to walk across the street from us. My mom and I used to go to Joburg Park in Johannesburg all the time. It's like the Central Park of Johannesburg, with beautiful gardens, a zoo, and a giant chessboard with human-sized chess pieces that people would play. My mother told me that once, when I was a toddler, my father tried to go with us. We were in the park, and he was walking a good bit away from us. I ran after him, shouting, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy!" People started looking. He panicked and ran away. I thought it was a game and kept on chasing him. I couldn't walk with my mother either. A light-skinned child with a black woman would raise too many questions. When I was a newborn, she could wrap me up and take me anywhere. Very soon, that wasn't an option. You see, I was a giant baby, an enormous child. When I was 1, you would have thought I was 2. When I was 2, you would have thought I was 4. There was no way to hide me. My mother found a way around the system. It was illegal to be mixed, in other words, to have a black parent and a white parent, but it was not illegal to be colored, in other words, to have 2 parents who are both colored. My mom moved me around the world as a colored child, even though I was considered a mixed child to the system. She found a daycare in a colored area where she could leave me while she worked. There was a colored woman named Queen who lived in our apartment building. When we wanted to go out to the park, my mom would invite her to go with us. Queen would walk next to me and act like she was my mother, and my mother would walk a few steps behind, like she was the maid working for the colored woman. I have dozens of pictures of me walking with this woman who looks exactly like me, but who isn't my mother. The black woman standing behind me, who looks like she's photobombing the picture, that's my mom. When we didn't have a colored woman to walk with us, my mother would risk walking with me on her own. She would hold my hand or carry me, but if the police showed up, she would have to drop me and pretend I wasn't hers. As difficult as it was to get around, we managed. It was easier to walk with my mom in the city. Enough people were out and about, black, white, and colored, going to and from work, that we would blend in with the crowd. But only black people were permitted in Soweto, a black-only township where my grandmother lived. During apartheid, the land was taken away from the black South Africans, and the best land was reserved for whites only. Blacks were assigned the most undesirable land. Soweto was one of those undesirable areas. It was called a township, but it was really a city itself, with a population of nearly 1 million. There were only 2 roads in and out, so that way the military could lock us in, stop any rebellion. In Soweto, the police were everywhere. They wore riot gear. They were militarized. They operated in teams and would swoop in out of nowhere, riding in armored personal carriers, hippos we called them, tanks with enormous tires and holes in the sides to fire their guns out of. You didn't mess with a hippo. You saw one, you ran. That was a fact of life. Whenever we went to Soweto, my grandmother refused to let me play outside. If she was watching me, it was, "No, no, no, he doesn't leave the house." Behind the wall, in the yard, I could play, but not in the street. And that's where the rest of the boys and girls were playing, in the street. I'd beg my grandmother to go outside. "Please, please, can I go play with my cousins?" "No, they're going to take you." For the longest time, I thought she meant that the other kids were going to steal me, but she was talking about the police. Children could be taken. Children were taken. The wrong colored kid in the wrong colored area, the government could come in, strip your parents of custody, haul you off to an orphanage. To police the townships, the government relied on its network of imps. the anonymous snitches who'd inform on suspicious activities. Sorry, I gotta scroll down. There were also blackjacks, black people who worked for the police. My grandmother's neighbor was a blackjack. She had to make sure he wasn't watching when she smuggled me in and out of the house. My gran still tells the story of when I was 3 years old and fed up of being locked in the house. I dug a hole under the gate in the driveway, wriggled through, and ran off. Everyone panicked. A search party went out and tracked me down. I had no idea how much danger I was putting everyone in. The family could have been deported. My gran could have been arrested. My mom might have gone to prison, and I probably would have been packed off to an orphanage for colored kids. I was kept inside. Other than those few instances of walking in the park, the flashes of memory I have from when I was young were almost all indoors. Me with my mom in her tiny apartment, me by myself at my grand's. I didn't have any friends. I didn't know any kids besides my cousins. I wasn't a lonely kid. I was good at being alone. I'd read books, play with the toy that I had. I'd make up imaginary worlds. I lived inside my head. I still live inside my head. To this day, you can leave me alone for hours and I'm perfectly happy entertaining myself. I have to remember to be with people.